before we get into the horrible weekend we all just witnessed, I'm going to even include Michigan fans because I don't think any of you all had figured to be in that close of a battle with Maryland. I am going to remind you guys to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us. That'd be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We got full episodes on YouTube as well as DetroitSportsNation.com. All right, Ryan, this weekend for me was nostalgic. This is what I grew up with. I grew up with my Michigan State Spartans getting absolutely embarrassed, and then I followed it up with watching the Lions snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So this was a very nostalgic weekend for me personally. I'm sure plenty of older Spartan fans and Lions fans feel the same. So let's start with our boys in Honolulu Blue. The game against Minnesota was close, like we said. The Lions covered the 5.5-point spread, like we said. We weren't sure if they were going to get a win. We figured it'd be a good battle. It looked great to start. Obviously, Lions take a 14-0 lead and then allow Minnesota to get their way right back into it, tie it up before halftime. And then the second half, really the fourth quarter, was just an embarrassment on all sides. There's so much blame to go around in this one, and before we get into fully playing the blame game, let me get your thoughts on this weekend's events.
It was horrible, man. It's one of the worst Lions losses that I've ever experienced. You know, they were up 14-0, they were up double digits in the fourth quarter, and then they gave the game away because they were just like stupid decisions from the Lions, and leaky defense, which we knew they had, but they held up fairly well, at least to start the game. But even then, the quick 14-0 lead got erased real fast by the Vikings, and then the Lions were able to build up another double-digit lead before they ended up losing it. It really does come down to the decision. So I know you didn't want to play the blame game so early, but that's what this game, came down to. Dalvin Cook ended up getting hurt for the Vikings, but he was tearing us up before all of that. I guess if you're looking for positives, right, kind of all over the place, Jeff Okudah played really well, and I'm sure we're going to get to that at some point, but really good against Justin Jefferson, locked him down like he did McLaurin, like he did Devontae Smith, who had a huge week this week. So Okudah's starting to look like the real deal, and that part is exciting about it. But other than that, it was a bad game. I thought Jared Goff missed some balls that the Lions could have put the game away if those were hit. And then just the decision making. To have the big one, right? To have Seibert go out and kick a 54-yard field goal when he's never done it. He's 2 of 6 on career kicks that are longer than 50 yards. So this is something that this dude literally just can't do. And then to kick in, and it's a game, I don't know, dudes were missing kicks all over the place. He had already missed one earlier. He's not that good of a kicker anyway. Even from 40 to 49, he's 17 out of 24. So to put him in a position where nobody thought that kick was going in, did you think he was going to make it?
No,
absolutely. Literally no faith.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Make that kick.
In the battle for kickers that we saw in the preseason, Seibert was the stronger leg. Patterson was the more accurate kicker, right?
Yeah, and Patterson went 6 for 6 or something, and he's 7 for 8 on the year. Even though I know the game where he was 6 for 6, probably extra points included. The field goals were between 20 and 30 yards. Now, could Seibert make those? I'm sure he could, but you don't feel good about the decision to go grab Austin Seibert or keep him is horrible.
No, but if we had kept the kicker that has the better accuracy but not the stronger leg, we're not in that position on Sunday because he knows that his kicker can't reach that, and so it's now punt or go for it on 4th down.
Does he? Because Dan Campbell's a cool guy. I don't know so much about all of his coaching acumen because these are the same mistakes that we saw last year. There's one that I think kind of has not been talking about when the Vikings, after the missed kick, the Vikings are getting the ball down. They have some big play, and they get it right into field goal range, basically. There's 40 seconds left. The Vikings don't have any timeouts. They're hurrying up to the line, and the Lions end up calling a timeout to give the Vikings essentially time to draw up a play, right? Maybe draw up 3 or 4 plays. Hey, we're going to do this, this, and this, etc. And the Lions come out of that timeout and then the Vikings throw the game-winning touchdown anyways. Like, what'd you talk about? Clearly, the guys weren't ready, whatever happened in that timeout, because the very next play was the game winner to, I think it was Osborne who caught it. I don't even know. They were 10 yards wide open, so I'm sure the closest cornerback or safety who was reading his damn nameplate could probably tell me what his name was, but it was just frustrating. And I know we're going to talk about, obviously, that end decision here. So, I guess, what'd you think about that in general? Because I'm so mad about it still.
So it was literally the same play back to back. It was a 28-yard completion to Osborne, and then Campbell called the timeout. And then a 28-yard completion to Osborne for the touchdown. And so, exactly what you said. He said that he wanted to give his boys a breather real quick. When he called the timeout, my initial thought was, he's trying to save some time for after they kick a tying field goal to see if we can still walk off with a game winner. That's what my first thought was when it happened. So I wasn't completely against it, but the whole situation was just obviously not ideal and not one we wanted to be into. So let's get to the blame game, because there were only a few bright points in this game. You nailed one of them. Jeff Okudah did his job and did it well. Jamal Williams, I thought for the most part, did his job and did it well. But there was lots of blame to go around, and I know that Dan Campbell is getting the most of that blame, and we will address that in this blame game. But so for Dan Campbell, it's a double-edged sword. We went for it on fourth down 6 times in this game, and successfully 4 times. The last time we went for it, didn't get it, and it hurt us, in a chance where we could ice the game away even earlier, where they were closer. I think they were at the 30-yard line when they went for it on that 4th down and 1, and didn't get it, got stuffed, and gave the Vikings the ball. So it was a double-edged sword as far as his aggressiveness, and I enjoyed it throughout the majority of the game. So there was that. There was obviously using the timeout while Minnesota was driving the 2 points that we had talked about. So Dan Campbell is getting all sorts of blame for this. And I want to remind people, because it seems to get lost in all this, that, I know we've been throwing this term around for as long as we've been Lions fans, and that term is rebuild. And how can you ever be in a rebuild if you never actually got anywhere in the first place? But I've always felt like this time feels different. And I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker. You know this firsthand, Ryan. The guys from Sports Carnage knew this firsthand. I called the, 3 wins a couple years ago, and despite what people say about the reason for it, I was right. I just didn't see it happening. And I've always felt different about this Holmes and Campbell situation, and I've liked what I've seen for the most part. This man is still very, very new to coaching, and this is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. And mistakes are going to be made. We need to see growth from those mistakes. But 20 games into a professional career does not make you a good or bad coach. And I think more patience is needed for situations like this where the coaching staff doesn't do their players any favors. His aggressiveness all game got us to this point, got us to the 14-point lead in the early stages of the game, and I don't know if we're at that without that aggressiveness on those 4th down calls. In this situation, 4th and 4 is not 4th and 1. It's not 4th and 2. You've got to get 12 feet. That's not easy to do with a running play. It's not easy to do with a passing play, rollouts, whatever they may be. There's no guarantee you're getting it. To me, the right call at that point was to punt it, take a penalty 5 yards, punt it, Try and put them inside the 10, and make them go the length of the field without any timeouts. That, for me, was the right call.
Yeah, even if you punt it and it goes in the end zone and then they start at the 20, like, you're asking Kirk Cousins to go about 60 yards to get to a field goal spot with their field goal kicker who sucks too. So they're probably going to miss if they're attempting a 54-yard field goal to tie the game. Now, if they go and they score a touchdown, sure, if they end up beating you, if you get the first down, then obviously you win the game. No, I'm absolutely punting it there. They didn't have any timeouts. I don't necessarily trust Kirk Cousins to go down the field. And if they do, I don't trust their field goal kicker. They don't have Justin Tucker, who beat the Lions last year, kicking from midfield, right? The 67-yard field goal. That's not something that the Vikings have. Their field goal kicker sucks. He missed 2 field goals earlier in the game. So if I'm the Lions, I'm just punting the ball. And you have a good enough punter who maybe can put some hang time on there and pin it down inside the 10. So now they got to go, even further, where essentially you're looking at like 1 sack could end you the ball game, right? And that's what I would have done. That's what I wanted them to do. They did not. If I was going to rank the decisions, I would punt, then I would go for it, and then very, very lastly would I ever kick a field goal. And even if you're concerned you don't have enough room to punt, take a delay a game and then punt it. Give yourself 5 yards. Like, what are you doing? I don't understand. Delay a game and then put a false start on top of that. Give yourself 10 yards if that's what you think you need. So for your point about Dan Campbell, he is a young coach, but you're also a coach in the NFL. You know, like this isn't exactly like a learn on the job type of thing. You need to do it in the sense that with the Lions rebuild, this team was good enough to beat the Vikings. Like, they had the players necessary to beat the Vikings. In a lot of rebuilds, you really just don't get that, right? A lot of the times, you're rebuilding, your roster top down is awful. We know the Lions offense is pretty good. The defense still needs work. So if the Lions were losing by 20 points, and you're like, they just don't have the horses to compete with the Vikings, that would have been fine to me. That would have been more preferable than losing a game because of your coaching staff when your team, of course the team wants to win, but the team had the opportunity to win. They should have won, even to the point where Jared Goff comes out, and he's not a guy who comes out here and talks a bunch of smack. It was basically like, yeah, the Vikings know that we should have won that game too. It was like, it's kind of ballsy to say after a game that you just lost, but it's how the players felt. I know the players still like Dan Campbell, but I do wonder how they feel knowing that really the coaching staff cost them the game. The players obviously could have made one more play, right? And then you get, you probably won the game. But to know that they put you in a position, because I don't think the players thought Seibert was making that kick either. How could you?
Probably not. All right, let's continue the blame game. Let's go to the defense. So, the defensive line, and Ryan, we talked about this last week before the game. We talked about the numbers and how often the Lions, do pressure on blitzes and how bad Cousins is against the blitz, all that stuff. I didn't see any pressure from a four-man front from the Lions. The Vikings ran all over them, and the line just did not do their job on this one. The linebackers, Anzalone, great job, 10 tackles, couple quarterback hits. Malcolm Rodriguez had a bunch of tackles as well, but he had some big misses as well. Obviously the big play to Irv Smith with him slipping behind him. Kuda did his job absolutely. Where was A.O.? A.O. was nowhere to be seen. Man was getting beat and penalty after penalty after penalty. Look, I get it. It was smart with Okudah to have a safety over the top as well to help with the double teaming and taking away their best weapon. Well, guess what? Cousins adjusted, and now you got KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen combining for 11 catches for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. Only 5 catches did not happen the times that they were targeted. So Cousins did what he needed to do. The defense should have adjusted accordingly. Obviously, Amani is not getting the job done by himself. The penalties are racking up. He's not doing his job. The defense let this game slip away as well. Then obviously at the very, very end, back-to-back wide open plays to KJ Osborne to seal the deal for the Minnesota Vikings. So the defense, in my mind, gets a lot of this blame as well.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention Aiden Hutchinson. We've played 12 quarters of football now, and he's been a ghost for 10 of them. He had 3 sacks last week in the first half, and other than that, you barely know the guys out there, and that goes to the pass rush. It's not just him, obviously. I thought McNeil on the defensive line played really well in that game against the Vikings, but yeah, everybody else on the defensive line, there's no pressure. Obviously, they're not stopping the run and getting in those gaps because Madison was having a day, Dalvin Cook was having a day before he ended up getting hurt. And the linebacking unit we already knew was bad, and they couldn't cover Irv Smith Jr. We don't have a ton of great coverage linebackers, and certainly not. And Irv Smith had probably what was the game of his life. It seemed like they called him almost. Not every play, obviously, because there are other guys getting involved, but there was a whole lot of Irv Smith Jr. that I didn't think we were going to see. We mentioned Okudah did his job locking up Jefferson, but that just made the Vikings look to everybody else, and everybody else, for the lack of a better word, like they were open. Adam Thielen's ancient, and he was catching touchdown passes, he was catching first downs, keeping the chains moving. KJ Osborne, who's from Detroit, was having a great day as well. And it's frustrating because, I mean, it's frustrating in totality because Kirk Cousins is sort of like a whatever quarterback. You know, he's in the top half of the NFL starters, but probably like on the bottom side of that top half. And he's a guy who's just given the Lions hell for, you know, however many years he's been in Minnesota now. And, you know, he's not that good to be consistently giving you hell. You know, this isn't Aaron Rodgers, who, if he beats you, you're like, okay, that makes sense, right? But you can, like, consistently getting beat by Kirk Cousins, we're not getting the type of pressure that we want to get on him. And obviously we're not stopping the run game, and they wanted to probably come in with the balance, right? They sure thought Justin Jefferson was going to be, you know, a bigger part of the offense than he was on Sunday, I'm sure. And Dan Campbell spoke to that today in his press conference. He said we wanted to neutralize Jefferson and sort of make the other guys beat them, and then the other guys ended up beating them. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess you got what you asked for, right? But, I mean, just the problem is you can't let those other guys beat you because those other guys aren't good enough to beat you, and they shouldn't have been good enough to beat you, and I don't think they would have been if you just punted the ball on fourth down.
It's kind of like game one of the NBA Finals when the Warriors focused so hard on Tatum to make sure he didn't. Everybody else in the Celtics uniform had a field day to pull that game one upset. But this is a one-time shot. You don't get 7 games in this one to bounce back. All right, next in the blame game, the special teams. We missed a 48-yard field goal. Obviously, we missed a 54-yard field goal. A 39-yard punt by Jack Fox, who's one of the better punters in the game. And the Vikings got to start at their own 43-yard line. They scored a touchdown on that one. Khalif Raymond, you let a punt land at the 31-yard line, and you let it bounce and roll all the way inside the 10-yard line. These things add up. Special teams definitely did not do them any favors on this Sunday game against the Minnesota Vikings.
No, and I think for the most part, our special teams are bad too. You know, it's not, we don't have a elite kick returner like we had when we had, you know, Agnew. And I know Agnew was all pro. I still didn't like him very much, but he's better than the kick returners we have now. You know, they're certainly not Eddie Drummond all that time ago, probably 15 years. Now the Lions had an elite kick returner. You know, Golden Tate was back there returning punts, and he was pretty good for us. But we don't have that. You saw that throughout the Hard Knocks, throughout the preseason, when the Lions are testing out different kick returners. You know, this week we had Justin Jackson, who I think he averaged 20 yards like a kick return with a long of 24. So nothing special there, at least not yet. And then just the other mistakes that you mentioned. Now, I'm not worried about Jack Fox. I am worried about the kicking in general. You know, that certainly can't happen. If you are the Lions, you need to have just a better kicker, right? I know Paul, who we know and we're in a group chat with, he's big on Rodrigo Blankenship. Now, I think Blankenship probably got cut for a reason from the Colts, and I know he got cut for a reason because he missed all those kicks in their Week 1 game against whoever they played, and the Colts ended up tying that game. But like he's probably better
Texans.
But he's probably better than what Austin Seibert is. So I think the Lions just need to grab a new kicker. You know, we've seen this before we got Prater, between Hansen and Prater, when we were going through Dave Rayner, maybe David Akers, like all these bad kickers that the Lions had, and then they were able to get Prater, not because Prater was bad at his job, because he had some off the field troubles, and then the Lions went and brought him in, and then we had another great kicker for 6-7 years, however long Matt Prater was here, and then you just didn't have to worry about it. But now you do. And I think that's part of Dan Campbell's aggressiveness and going forward on fourth down is I don't think he fully trusts Austin Seibert. Now, today he did say again he would send Seibert back out there to kick a 54-yard field goal, even though yesterday after the game he said, hey, I regret the decision. So there's a little bit of double talk there, and I understand he wants to back his guy, but his actions for the most part show that he doesn't trust Austin Seibert that much, and I don't think he should, and it's just frustrating that in the biggest moment he decided to trust him instead of trust your best special teams player in Jack Fox.
All right, and second to last one for the blame game, the injuries. Obviously, we lost Tracy Walker for the whole season, Achilles injury. That sucked. Swift was not 100% coming in. It was obvious that ankle is bothering him. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down with a lower body injury as well. So you have 3 key players in different aspects of the game. defensive back, a wide receiver, a running back. They're all very key to what we do, especially offensively with Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yes, St. Brown toughed it out and he played a decent game, but you could tell he wasn't himself. He wasn't 100%. So how much do injuries play a factor in this loss, especially with Swift? Look, as great as Jamal Williams was, the number of yards per per carry that Swift was getting is absolutely ridiculous, and Jamal Williams ain't touching that.
I think Swift's probably bigger, but they came into the game very Jamal Williams heavy. So I know Swift, he got like re-injured during the game, but he was already playing hurt, and you could tell they would put him in spots. You know, they gave him three carries in the first half, and then maybe 2 or 3 more in the second half. And one of the carries he had, like he looked pretty good when he had the ball in his hand still, but one of the carries he came out because it looked like he hurt his ankle, and then he came back in and he hurt his shoulder, and then he was out again. The St. Brown one is interesting because I think the St. Brown one maybe affected how they called the game in the fourth quarter, knowing that he wasn't 100%, and he's obviously Jared Goff's safety blanket, the guy that he really likes to go to on third down, fourth down when they need it, really just throughout the game. I mean, that's why St. Brown has 7 or 8 catches straight in however many games it is now, because him and Jared Goff are just, they're familiar with each other like that, and that's Goff's guy. That's Goff's go-to guy. So maybe that affected some of the play calling that the Lions had in the fourth quarter, which could have affected the outcome of the game. Maybe if they're a little more aggressive, if they trust that St. Brown can get open or can make this play or whatever, then I guess there could have been a different outcome. But I mean, you still look at the Vikings. Like Dalvin Cook was hurt, and that's their best player, second best player, I guess. If you want to say Justin Jefferson's their best player. But it just happens. That's what the NFL's kind of about. Guys are going to get hurt. You're going to have next man up mentality. And for the Lions, they have, again, a pretty good running back. I thought Jamal Williams did play really well. Reynolds, when he got in there, I thought he played, pretty well too, because that offensive line, even while that's not fully healthy, I thought they still did a pretty nice job of run blocking and creating holes for just whoever was getting the the handoff back there.
Okay, actually lied. We have 2 more. So the second to last one actually is the refs. Was Amani really that dirty? Did Jamal Williams really deserve a flag for the touchdown celebration? It seemed like there was a decent amount of holding on the edges for the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. Did the refs play a factor in this? Because it seemed like the calls started coming after the Lions went up 14-0.
I mean, I don't know, because if I was a Vikings fan, I'd be pretty upset about the Lions have the ball, they're trying to ice the game, and it is, for whatever reason, they decide to throw on this play. It's an incomplete pass. Jared Goff throws the ball straight into the ground, but they call defensive holding on the Vikings, even though it was for real, like snap, throw the ball away. So the holding, it's not like Jared Goff was looking downfield and it affected the play or something. And then it's an automatic first down when I think it would have been second, or might have even been like 3rd and 10 after that, when the Vikings were trying to make a comeback. And we said it in the group chat when that happened. We're like, oh, the Vikings are turning into the Lions, with the dumb penalty and giving away the free first down. Obviously, it didn't happen. That came back to bite us. But I thought that was a really important play, at least at the time, that the refs, benefited the Lions with. And then even at the end of the first half, when the Vikings are trying to score, they're running, they have the ball. I think their center has it, their guard, one of them. They're trying to give the ball to the ref so he can spot it, and then Charles Harris knocks the ball out of his hands. And it wastes 1 or 2 seconds. The refs have to pick it back up. By that time, the clock expires. And then Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings coach, are going over to the ref saying, how can you let him do that? So I thought the Lions got away with some stuff where if I was a Vikings fan and they ended up losing, I'd probably be asking the same question. Say, how big of a factor did the refs play? So I think the refs were, pretty neutral. If you want to say they're bad both ways, I guess. But I thought they were pretty neutral in this game.
I had to throw it out there, Detroit versus everybody, and the refs loved, we've had plenty of examples throughout our lives as Lions fans of just egregious calls. I didn't see anything too egregious. I thought Amani did some pretty good amount of holding and illegal contacts.
He had that holding or that defensive pass interference that didn't get called on one of the plays for I remember that.
So then last but not least, the offense. And look, we know this about Jared Goff. He doesn't have that strong of an arm. And that's one of the things that makes Amon-Ra St. Brown so important is his ability after the catch to stretch it 4 yards. And DJ Chark, who could be that guy to go deep and take the top off the defense, is great. But if you don't have a quarterback that can hit him, what's the point? Obviously, missing Swift plays a big factor. Jamal Williams is a very good running back. I still don't think he's RB1 on any team in the NFL. He's RB2, and that's that, and that's fine. But he's not a starting running back in the NFL. He's just, in my mind, he's just not. And so he did a fantastic job picking up the slack for Swift, but not having Swift plays a factor in the offensive plays. But when you are playing with who you got, you still got to go out and do the job. Hawk running a 3-yard out on a 3rd and 6. What was the point of that? Why are you running it short of the sticks? You have 3 defenders right behind you. You're not getting through them to get those extra 9 feet you need to get after catching the ball. It doesn't make any sense to me. There was just countless times where the offense, I thought, let this team down as well. Receivers who were not making the sticks, Goff missing on throws. Do they get the most of the blame in this blame game? No, by far not. Absolutely. But I'm trying to get the point across that this is a team effort, win or lose. And I think every aspect of our team failed at crucial points to help the Lions walk away from Minnesota with a victory.
Yeah, and Jared Goff, I thought he played all right, but, there's certainly throws and plays that he left on the field that you want to have back, but that is essentially what you are going to get from Jared Goff. Hawk had a touchdown. I still don't know that he's the guy that the Lions want or need him to be. The offense was frustrating. They had their touchdown streak going until the fourth quarter when they didn't score a touchdown. A time it would have been really nice to score a touchdown and for that streak to keep going, because if that happens, we're talking about the 2-1 Lions instead of the 1-2 Lions. But it's still, for me, it's still hard to get so mad at an offense that's consistently giving you 24 points, 27 points, whatever it is, because that's usually enough to at least keep you in the game. It's enough to win a lot of games, and it's enough to keep you in the game like deep in the fourth quarter. But if their defense just can't stop anybody, then it is what it is. And now they needed to make plays in that fourth quarter, and they didn't end up doing it. They could have obviously got a first down before the 4th and 4 even happened, and then we're not talking about this. And I thought they made enough plays. I thought they had some nice explosive plays throughout the game. There were just it was kind of absent in that fourth quarter, especially when you got that gift of that defensive holding that we just talked about with Minnesota, where you threw the ball, it stopped the clock, and everyone probably at that point is thinking oh no, here we go again, same old Lions. They're not going to get the 10 or 15 yards that they need on this play, and then the Vikings are going to get back with a chance to tie. That doesn't happen. It's a first down. It's oh my God, there's a huge break, and then the offense still can't do anything with it. And it's just, so that part's still frustrating all around. You want them to be able to execute those plays. But I think of all the people that we've listed blame on so far, the offense would be the lowest on the list.
I agree. Absolutely. And, just a reminder for all the Kool-Aid drinkers out there who want to chant, Super Bowl bound after one victory, or, oh my God, it's the end of the world after one loss. This is still a young team that is learning how to do it correctly in the NFL. I want to get to the point that we are no longer a laughingstock, an embarrassment in the NFL, and that we are competitive. To me, I'm seeing things on the right track, and that we are working our way towards being a consistently competitive football team. But our defense is not good. We knew this coming in. The secondary especially was going to have issues. And we knew the offense was going to have to carry the load. They were going to have to put up 30-plus points because the defense can easily give up 30-plus points. So 24 points by the offense is not enough. And you are getting some of the blame from me in this one, especially when you put up 14 pretty quickly in a game and then can't do anything pretty much after that, especially in the fourth quarter. Is play calling an issue? Absolutely. A very unbalanced fourth quarter. 4 passes to 14 rushing attempts is not the way to get it done. I understand you want to bleed the clock. If you're going to bleed the clock all the way down. Don't snap it with 10 seconds left on the play clock. What's the point of that? Take it down to one or two before you do it if this is your goal and your plan. I hate this plan. I've always hated this plan. I hate when you stop playing football and start playing prevent to stop the other team. No, go score, go play your offense, and get the job done. That's the best part of this team this year is our offense. It's not special teams. It's not defense. The offense is the best part of the Detroit Lions last year, so rely on them. Let them do their job because the defense is going to have a harder time doing their job because they're just not as good at it. They're younger, and they don't have all the pieces they need. The offense has most of the pieces they need to get the job done. Let them do their job. So just all around for me, this was a complete team loss by the Lions from head coaching all the way down to kicking. It didn't matter. You can spread your blame how you want, but it wasn't all on one thing. This was a team loss for the Lions, and this is a team that is still learning how to win. You are in your second year, 20th game by Dan Campbell. It's gonna take some time. He's gotten a lot of things right. The players seem to love him. He seems to get it. But calling the game, and especially calling the game in crucial moments, it's going to take some time. In my mind, I think, it's going to take some time to learn how to do that correctly.
I don't know why it would take time, though. Like, he's been around the NFL before. I know he hasn't been a head coach, but he's seen late game situations. Like, you should understand how this is going to play out. I don't think you need to coach 40 games in the NFL to know. Let the play clock run down before you snap the ball, or to not kick a 54-yard field goal with a kicker who's never made one before. So I understand that he's still inexperienced as a head coach, although he was the more experienced head coach on Sunday against the Vikings because this is Kevin O'Connell's first year and Dan Campbell's second. But he's just been around the game of football in the NFL long enough to at least, I think, understand clock management. I think that should be probably the easiest thing, in my opinion, for a coach to understand. And some of the X's and O's stuff and some of the schematic stuff, maybe that can come later. If there's something you haven't seen from a head coaching's perspective, and then another coach just comes in and they slap you around a little bit, right? And you're like, oh my God, what the hell happened? You go review the tape. You're like, oh, they did that, and that, and I had no idea that even existed. And then you can get better from that. I don't know how much better you get at game and time management if he's been playing football since high school. You should understand the importance of 2-minute drills, 4-minute drills, of just playing the clock and knowing how to use it in your favor and knowing how to use it when kind of your back's up against it and you need as little clock to run as possible. So I think I'm a little more pessimistic than you that will get fixed.
Well, then we got to hope that, like Andy Reid, he gets so much offensive talent on his teams that he can spend his whole career being terrible at clock management but can still win a whole lot of football games.
I mean, you even look at Jim Caldwell, who was here and went to a Super Bowl before he came here. He never really got better at the in-game managing part of coaching, and he's head coach for probably, I don't know, probably not 10 years, but probably close to 7 or 8 years of full head coaching experience. 4 years here, 2 years in Indianapolis, 2 or 3.
I think it was more than that. Yeah, I mean, he took over, right after the Super Bowl, and for quite a few years before that all fell apart. I think he had 4 years in Indianapolis before coming here for 4 years.
Well, he took him to the Super Bowl when they were 14-2.
Oh, that was his team, wasn't it?
Yep, the one that lost to the Saints.
Right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that was 09 when they lost to the Saints. He joined the Lions in what?
Probably 13.
13?
I think so. Jim Schwartz was 11-5 in 2011, and then the Lions lost.
So 13.
I thought Caldwell came here in 13. So he's probably got 8 years of head coaching experience. Point is, a lot of head coaching experience, over 100 games coaching in the NFL, and he didn't get better at it.
Well, let's hope that Dan does, because I think he's doing a lot of things right, but we're still seeing, obviously, mistakes from him. I'm going to take it as growing pains. Hopefully I'm right. I do like most of the things I'm seeing from Dan Campbell, but obviously this team is not there yet. We knew it was going to take some time. You got to have some patience. I think we're on the right track, me personally. All right. Let's get to more depressing news.
There's more depressing than the Lions?
Yeah, there was more depressing than the Lions. Our Michigan State Spartans getting absolutely mollywopped by the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So I have decided, because we talked about this game plenty before, and I was like, oh, Minnesota only throws the ball like 16, 17 times a game. They really focus on the running game. That's right up our alley. We should be okay. We should be able to fight in this one. I'm throwing that out the window, Ryan. From now on, I don't care if a team only threw once. I don't care if we face Army. All right? If Army is facing Michigan State this year, they are going to throw the ball 45 times because our secondary is so god-awful that we can't stop a high school quarterback right now. It is so bad. And apparently, we lost all ability to get pressure on a quarterback with our front seven as well, which just makes it even better for Spartan fans. We got nothing to look forward to this year, folks. Nothing. And this is not overreaction Monday, Tuesday, whatever. No. This is seeing with my own eyes what we have and what we don't have. We don't have Kenneth Walker to cover up the mistakes from last year. We don't have that. We don't have that playmaker that can just actually carry the team on his back to 11 wins and a New Year's Six bowl. We don't have that this year. Peyton Thorne has absolutely regressed. He's had one good game, and that was at Washington where it didn't even matter. All right, we got nothing at the quarterback position, apparently. We got nothing in the running back position. We got no offensive line. We got no defensive line. We got no secondary. I don't know what happened to Jacoby Windman. Apparently, he was kidnapped after the shutout in week 2 because I ain't seen him since. This Michigan State team is bad. Thank God we had Cupcake to start to get a couple of wins because this could have been an 0-12 season. As it is right now, I don't know how we get 2 more wins. I don't know how we get 2 more wins. If they have anything even remotely competent at quarterback, as long as he's got 2 arms and they aren't this long, we are not going to stop their passing attack. And I don't know how we get victories out of any of the games, especially the ones we got coming up. We beaten Maryland with Talia throwing. That man about to throw for 550 yards on our defense. We're going to beat Michigan with JJ? Not a chance. Ohio State? No way in hell. This is not happening. It is going to be a bad year. Prepare yourself for it now. It's only end of September. We ain't even in October yet, but I'm already trying to find Halloween masks to hide my Spartan fanhood.
Yeah, the passing defense is bad, but it was bad last year, and they still won 11 games. I don't think they're going to win 11 games, of course. No, I didn't think they were going to win 11 games at the beginning of the season, but you can win games with the god-awful pass defense, and it is something that this team has done, just not this year. But we've seen them have the ability to do it with Peyton Thorne. Yeah, if we're playing like that blame game that we just played with the Lions, I think Peyton Thorne is probably last on my blame list because he's not getting time, and the thing that I think is really crippling Peyton Thorne is okay, I'll start with this. He needs to be better. He needs to step up. If Michigan State was going to repeat 11 wins or get to 9 or 10 that people thought they would get to, Peyton Thorne had to take a step up from what he was last year because we knew we didn't have Kenneth Walker. We knew we weren't going to have Jalen Naylor. So Thorne needed to step up. And just the offense needed to change. Now, I know we brought in Berger and Broussard, but we knew the offensive line was bad too because they were bad last year. So it's not to say that we knew the entire offense was going to be, god-awful or something. But we just knew the offense had to be different, right? And if it had to be different, it probably had to involve throwing the ball a little bit more, and you hope your quarterback would have taken a step up, and that hasn't happened. Where I think Peyton Thorne is getting maybe a little bit too much criticism, or why people should take a look at really how difficult is Michigan State making it for Peyton Thorne, is when Michigan State goes down 22-0, or when when they go down however many points that Michigan State is going down by so fast. What that does is it essentially throws your offensive playbook out the window because the teams know, one, you're not really good at running the ball, and two, you're certainly not going to run the ball now because now we know you don't have Kenneth Walker, and we know that your offensive line is bad, so now you have to beat us with Peyton Thorne just trying to sling the ball all over the place, and he's not a good enough quarterback to beat defenses when they know that is what is going to happen. If you had a more balanced attack, then I think Peyton Thorne could hurt you with some of the deep ball stuff that he's shown, kind of the ability to do. But if the team knows that you're just throwing the ball because they know you can't run it and they know that you're already down 3 touchdowns before halftime, then I think the game script completely flips, and that's what I think Peyton Thorne struggles with, because now Michigan State's trying to get those points back because they know it's not like their defense is going to give up 22 points and then bear down and give up only 3 more the rest of the half or something, or shut them out the rest of the half, or keep them scoreless until the fourth quarter to try and help get your offense back in the game. So you're taking just kind of like effort shots now more because it's what you think that you have to do to win, and it might be what you have to do to win. Not that they almost beat Washington, but that was the game plan against Washington, and for a while it looked like, hey, maybe they're going to be able to somehow get back in this game because of kind of that philosophy on offense, but then the defense still couldn't stop anybody, and Washington just kept scoring. So every time you thought Michigan State was about to get close, Washington's, Michael Penix threw for another touchdown, and then you're like, okay, now I know where this game is going, and that's where I think I would shoot Peyton Thorne a little bit of defense, right? I'd shoot him a little bit of bail on that, and not even that he's been good. I just think he's kind of last on the list of problems that Michigan State has had. And with Minnesota, one thing I thought was really poor was the tackling. If you looked at Minnesota's yards per carry, it was probably close to 5. And I thought Michigan State, I thought they were getting there, they just weren't getting them down. And if you're not getting them down, then kind of what the hell is the point of getting there if you're not going to tackle them? So then it allowed Minnesota to beat us with the run and the pass. I know Jacoby Windman came out and he said we thought Minnesota was going to run the ball, and then they started passing, and kind of like we failed to execute against the pass, which but no, they weren't able to get any. They started to bring more pressure, and they just still weren't able to get there. So, I guess at least they made the adjustment that we wanted to see them make from the Washington game. It just didn't work because the players weren't able to get there. But I did notice on third downs when they had Cale Holliday out there, who can't cover a fire hydrant, that when he was out there on third downs, he was blitzing and he was rushing the quarterback. So that part I did like, although it didn't work. Only part of the game I liked was, okay, at least they're making an attempt. And now it's just kind of up to the players to execute it, and obviously they weren't able to. The defense let Tanner Morgan have the game of his life, which is just a disgusting sentence to say, especially with Chris Bell out, Minnesota's top receiver. So then you thought, okay, we might have a chance here, and still there was no chance. There was guys wide open every single play, every time you drop back to pass.
I mean, he's a 5th-year senior, so he's heady. He understands the game. He's got a new offensive coordinator that's allowing him to actually move the offense, and they played it smart. I understand they have a great running back. Why would you play into Michigan State's strength? Go play their weakness. And that's, I think, every opponent we are about to face is going to take this playbook and throw it right back at us. They're going to be passing all the time against us, and I don't see any way that we stop it. I agree with you. Peyton Thorne is the least of our worries for what Michigan State has coming up the rest of this year. He is a competent quarterback. I believe that he is the best option we have at quarterback. I know people are yelling for Noah Kim to get out there, and Noah Kim looked good in garbage time, but when the game matters, when everything's going on, I want someone like a Peyton Thorne who's been through it and has shown that he can do it. But he needs an O-line that's going to give him time to do it. He needs wide receivers who are going to get separation and give him the spots to get the ball to them. And he needs a defense that can get off the field a little bit quicker than after the team gets into the end zone. Now, the offense didn't do the defense. It was early in the game. Early in the game, the offense and the defense, no favors. You are throwing a tired defense out there time and time again because you couldn't get a first down, which only just made Minnesota's job easier early on to build that big lead. So, in some cases, Thorne needed to do more and just didn't. And it just, if we are going to let the other team get the ball first every game and they go down and march right down our throats and score a touchdown to start every game, I don't know how we're going to have any excitement for when the offense comes on the field, because it just seems like all the air has just been taken out of the building by one touchdown. And it's just the way a team can methodically march on our defense without any resistance whatsoever. There might be a little tiny resistance on like second down where like they only got a yard or two, but that's it. Like it was consistent, moving the ball, chopping up our defense. Anything they wanted, they got, just like how Washington the week before. Anything they wanted, they got. It's just disheartening, man. It's just absolutely disheartening and deflating to watch.
I mean, look at, again, Tanner Morgan, 23 of 26. There's 3 incomplete passes the whole game. And one thing that I think you mentioned as I fumble with my headphone here is the air being taken out, and it goes back to when Michigan State falls down early, they really have to like kind of throw out their game script. Michigan State only ran the ball 14 times, and this is a team that wants to be way more balanced than 14 rushes and 31 pass attempts. And then you compare that to Minnesota, who ran the ball 48 times and, had 26 pass attempts. It's like that's the part that Michigan State's not going to be able to overcome. You can't give up the early leads like that. Minnesota, again, 14-0. It seemed like it was right out the gate, but 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. And then Michigan State's defense, they gave up 3 points in the second quarter. So it was 17-0, but that's the kind of response that you want the defense to have at that point, right? If you're going to give up 14-0, we're going to give up 3 points and get us to the half. Offense, if you can get us 7 or 10, then we still feel like, we're kind of in this game. But if you're going to put up a goose egg and we already gave up 14 points, I think that's where it just becomes disheartening. And that's where it feels like some of these games can be over way before they're actually over, because a 14-point lead, especially in college football, I mean, we just saw the Lions give up a 14-point lead, but especially in college football, like a 14-point lead is nothing. These teams are, not like, all these college football teams are bad, but they are all just so mistake-prone and mistake-driven. You saw it in the Michigan game, the opening kickoff, the thing bounces off the guy's face mask, and then Michigan scores a touchdown in literally 3 game seconds, which I've never seen before. There's 14:57 on the clock, and Michigan is up 7-0 because college kids are just like, they're just stupid. And like they make a ton of mistakes that it can just put you right back in the game. But for Michigan State, it just seems more disheartening when they're down. Like a 14-point deficit seems larger than 14. It seems larger than 14 essentially.
Yeah. That Michigan game, who knew the game winner could come with 3 seconds into the game? I mean, that was the game winner. You look at the rest of the football game, Maryland, gave Michigan everything they could handle. If they don't spot Michigan 7 points and they go and score on their opening drive 7 points.
Interceptions?
Yeah.
At least one, I think, too. But, boy, you talk about some home cooking.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially with our defense. Like it's just bad. I don't see a way out. Not this year. I don't see a Kenneth Walker pulling us out. I don't see Berger and Broussard, turning into that. I don't see Peyton Thorne just going dumb all of a sudden and throwing for 500 yards. Like, I just don't see it this year. I'm reading pieces and they're like, oh, it's going to be harder now to make a New Year's Six bowl. Hey. What? What? Make a New Year's Six bowl? Are you kidding me? If we make a bowl, I'm going to do a handstand. I can't do it, but I'm going to find a way to do it. If we make a bowl, that means we won 6 games. We win 4 more games this year. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see a team on our schedule that doesn't have at least a semi-confident quarterback that we can actually run our game against and not have to worry about them throwing all over the field against us because we don't have the guys to get it done in the secondary. I just don't see it.
I mean, what you need is a quarterback to go out there and make mistakes in, your pass rush to get home. Obviously, that hasn't happened in the last 2 games, but with some of these quarterbacks in the Big Ten, it can happen. Probably not going to happen against C.J. Stroud. Probably not C.J. or J.J. McCarthy either. But maybe some of these other guys can give Michigan State the ball when they probably shouldn't give Michigan State the ball, and you'll be able to capitalize that way. But no, I don't think there's going to be a game where Michigan State is just out there locking people up in the secondary. I think it'll be a game where the offense probably clicks, and if Michigan State wins, it might just have to be in the shootout.
Like a 55-51 shootout. I mean, before it was, okay, we don't have Slade, we don't have Snow, we don't have Henderson. And those are big losses. But I don't know if those three guys come back. We're not going to get Snow back this year anyway. But even Slade and Henderson coming back, is that really going to be enough? Our defense looks so bad. I don't know how that is enough with those two guys coming back that it's going to make any kind of a difference in the season we're going to have.
I mean, I think it'll make some difference. It's not going to turn the defense good or anything, but it'll make it improved. It'll make some difference, I think, because Henderson should be a leader back there. So hopefully that helps with some of the communication issues. But yeah, man, I don't know. We'll see. We got, again, Maryland this weekend, and while it sounds like, I guess we'll talk about it on our show on Friday, but Talia should come here and throw the ball all over the place. Maryland's defense is also suspect, so that's not a game that I would just chalk up as an auto loss, but we're not going to win that game holding Maryland to 20 points or anything. That'll have to be one of those shootout games. 42-30.
Warning you right now, over-under for Talia is going to be 400 yards. All right, I think we've kicked this dead horse long enough, so we are going to wrap things up. Thank you again for kicking it with Griffin and Bass. For Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Bassin. They get no time of it. We want to talk about Michigan. We can talk about Michigan if you really want to. I mean, it was surprising that Maryland gave them as much of a fight as they did. It was surprising that Michigan's pass rush is really not as good as what I thought they were going to be. I know they lost everybody, but I thought with the recruiting that Michigan has, they kind of replace everybody almost like a poor man's Alabama. But Maryland, Talia was good. The offense was good. They fought Michigan tooth and nail throughout that whole game. And, if it wasn't for Blake Corum, Michigan loses this football game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan got some help. Obviously, the opening kickoff. I don't think the interception was at least the first one. I definitely don't think that was an interception. And they didn't even review it, which was super surprising to me. But, yeah, man, I think Michigan has some stuff that they need to clean up because Maryland, while you might think they're better or that they fought hard, not better than Michigan, but just better than previous thoughts of what Maryland was. I still don't think that that's a very good football team. I think they have, some big issues on defense. You mentioned they gave up 500 yards to SMU before they played Michigan. I mean, I thought McCarthy was pretty careless. Not with he didn't have any turnovers. He did fumble once, but Michigan was able to get back on it, but just careless with his body, man. He's running, he's getting killed, he's not having the pocket awareness that he needs to have, and he's getting blasted that way. So while you're Michigan, and this is something that we talked about before the game, I guess, which is just why I wanted to touch on it a little bit, is while that might not hurt you against Maryland, when you play one of these better teams, that might end up costing you. And it's just something that a better team can look at and say, okay, Michigan can be exposed that way. Maryland didn't have the players to expose Michigan that way, but we do. So now when we face Michigan, it'll be a bigger problem than what we saw on Saturday. But, yeah, I think Michigan was in real danger of losing that game. But they won it, and they won games like that last year. They had the Nebraska game, which was really close. They had the Penn State game, which was really close as well. And talk about college football is survive and advance, right? If you keep winning, you're going to put yourself in a position at the end of the year to be in the Big Ten race. It'll probably come down to Michigan and Ohio State, in Columbus at the end of the year. And then the winner of that goes to the Big Ten championship game where they're going to smack whoever is in the West. And then the winner of that, unless they have 2 losses or something, is going to be in the college football playoff. So Michigan just kind of have to avoid these types of games and these types of mistakes heading into was in November 26th is when I think they play Ohio State. So I think that's what I would be worried about if I was a Michigan fan. I thought this game was a little bit more concerning. It was obviously closer than you wanted, but that happens. But I thought there were real things to be concerned about, especially if Cade's hurt too. And again, JJ was just so careless with himself.
Yeah, no, JJ's got to understand he's got to take a little better care of himself because the offense really now does ride on him being the guy getting the job done at the quarterback position. His throws weren't quite on the mark, as we've seen obviously against a lesser competition. So I mean, there's going to be it was a good in the sense of there were growing pains that were obvious to see, but it didn't kill the Wolverines, and they still got the W walking out of there. Obviously Blake Corum is the reason they got out of there with that W. His ability to just put that team on his back, because the running game outside of that, Donovan Edwards better get healthy again quick, because I don't think Stokes is going to be passing the mustard as far as backing up when Corum has to go out for a breather. And JJ obviously didn't do nearly as much with his legs as we've seen him against lesser competition, and you don't want him doing that much obviously anyway. There's issues with that. You just even more of a risk to get injured, and he can be that engine that can really push Michigan into an elite offense if he can stay healthy and get those passes on point. But the O-line needs to do a bit of a better job, and the D-line, that pass rush, definitely needs to do a better job before they go face Ohio State at the end of the year. Luckily for them, they've got Iowa this week coming up, and Iowa is not exactly an offensive juggernaut, but we will talk more about that on our next show when we get you guys prepared for the games between Michigan State and Maryland, kind of a game, and the game between Michigan and Iowa, as well as obviously the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks. So now, I want to thank you guys for kicking it with Griffin and Bass. For a fuzzy Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Bassin. As always, Wu-Tang is for the children.
Even fuzzy Wu-Tang is for the children. Blurry Wu-Tang.
We'll see y'all in a couple days. Peace.
480p Wu-Tang. See ya.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN, and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.